Hello everyone. We're going to start in just a few minutes. So let's just wait for some more people to join and then we can start. Thanks. Okay, so Alina, let's start and then we'll have more people joining in the session.
Perfect. I hope everybody is able to see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So hello everyone, welcome to the Data Driven Marketing Webinar 2.0 as we call it from Data Pilot. Today we're very excited to lead you through some very up-to-date things that are happening in the marketing sphere. First of all, we need to talk about who we are, and Data Pilot in Perspective basically says that we envision to be the world's most empowering data solutions company, and we want to achieve that by providing every business the understanding of their problems and providing optimum digital data-driven solutions. We're a team of experts with very diverse backgrounds, skills, and experiences. We help businesses unleash their potential and boost profit by providing tailored, state-of-the-art technology solutions for unique data-related problems. Our data expertise and customer-centric approach set us apart. We believe in making strategic long-term relations with our clients to provide high quality and value for money services. What we do is that we provide all of these departments, these various departments across a diverse range of industries with solutions. And the departments we're working currently with is HR, marketing, logistics, operations, business side, product and design, and sales. These are services trailer. We do data strategy consulting. We do IoT-based solutions. We do data-driven marketing strategy. We're very good with artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions. We do data warehousing and business intelligence. And we do custom software development. Today, the hosts for this webinar from Data Pilot side are me, Alina Iqtidar. I'm the digital marketing specialist at Data Pilot. I have recently completed my integrated marketing communications master's from Northwestern. I'm also a Fulbright scholar and a former LUMS graduate, and I have 5+ experience in the various facets of marketing. On the other end, we have Ali Mojis. He's the leading data science he's leading our data science analytics function at Data Pilot. He has extensive experience ranging from data strategy consulting, analytics to AI, ML models. He's currently also pursuing his master's degree from University of Illinois. He's done projects for companies such as Netsol, Autos, Nissan, BMW, Levi's, Jaguar, and Land Rover. And now coming to our panelists for the day, which is Jim Lecinski, none other than Jim Lecinski, who's the ex-vice president of customer solutions at Google. We've been really talking a lot about him through all of our posts and in every single invite that we've sent to everyone present today. And now I think I will move on to Jim Lecinski himself so he can introduce himself, because I really do not think that, given his credentials, I'll do a fair job here.
Great. Well, while you switch over to the slides, Alina, thank you. And thank you, Ali. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Good morning from Chicago. Good evening to you wherever you are in the world. I am Professor Jim Lecinski. I'm a professor of marketing, a clinical associate professor here at Northwestern University in Chicago. I have 30 plus years of experience in the marketing world on the ad agency side, as Alina mentioned, a long time at Google, and I've been a full-time professor for about 5 years or so. And my area of expertise, my research special area, is consumer journey using data and machine learning in marketing. We'll talk more about that today and try to help everybody understand a little bit more about what the power is here and how you can get started to superpower, to supercharge your marketing using data and AI. And I'll share a little bit of a tool called the AI Marketing Canvas. So with that, Alina, let's jump in. So our hypothesis that we want to share today is that while there are many uses for data and machine learning, you saw some of them, HR, finance, operations, etc. And by the way, those tools can be used for both cost-saving opportunities as well as top-line growth. What we're going to focus on today is the belief that there is an untapped opportunity to use big data and machine learning in marketing to drive top-line growth and thereby gain a competitive advantage. So that's kind of where we're going to focus this discussion. I'll show some examples of who's doing what here, some new things, some ideas to get you started. So let's go ahead to the next slide. The background for what I'm going to share with you today comes from the project, the AI Marketing Canvas, that I spent the better part of the past 2 years along with my friend and colleague, Dr. Rajkumar Venkatesan from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. And that led to our recent book release, the AI Marketing Canvas that you see here on the right. We are pleased to say that it is the #1 new release in marketing on Amazon, and I'll take you through some of that content, some other content as well. But what we're trying to do in this project is offer a roadmap or a path on how to get started to develop your data-driven and AI growth strategy in marketing. Next slide. So, we should probably step back before we charge forward and just take a brief look at sort of the evolution or the arc of marketing over the past 75 years. And we know this story. We all started as sort of mass marketing, broadcasting one message to everyone. Maybe you had 1, 2, or 3 segments. Your use of data was low to non-existent and technology was sort of non-existent. This was the so-called Mad Men days where you put an advert and blasted it everywhere on TV, on sides of buses, on outdoor billboard ads, etc. But then over time, this migrated from having only 1 or 2 or 3 segments to maybe a dozen, kind of what we would call personae. And this was the era of precision marketing, where we started to use a little bit of research, understanding differences between customers, those customers who liked gardening versus those who drank more beer versus those who worked at home. And we had some kind of rough indexes about customer differences, and started to use that to just tailor our message a little bit. That moved then to the era of the internet, which brought along data-driven marketing. Catalogers were early into this, direct mail marketers were early into this, and instead of now, a dozen persona, you might have 100 segments, but it was all done manually, right? Like we would classify customers or prospects manually into segment A, B, C, segment 98, 99, segment 100, and we used a database, was essentially the technology that we used in order to do that. Maybe when our mailers or catalogs went to a printer, you know, it would have a little customization printed into that mail piece or postcard or catalog. And so what we're talking about today, though, is crossing the proverbial chasm into true personalized one-to-one, really data-driven, personalized marketing. And this now has the potential to not just have a dozen or 100 segments, but each customer could be a segment of one in theory here. So you could have millions of segments if you're a business with millions of customers or prospects. But this requires now not just a little bit of data and a little bit of technology, but a lot of data and a lot of technology. And we're going to talk that the specific type of technology required here isn't just sort of an Excel spreadsheet or a SQL database, but actually now we need some heavy lifting and some great partners like the folks at Data Pilot to help us get going, because it requires a specific form of AI that we'll talk about called machine learning. Alina? So, you know, we thought I would start with an inspiring quote. Always good to start with a quote. This was from my old boss and mentor, Google CEO at the time, Dr. Eric Schmidt, who famously, way back, it seems like way back in 2017, made this bold prediction. He said, the future of your business, no matter what business, what category, what country, what size your business is, the future of your business depends on the combination of big data and machine learning applied to the business opportunities and challenges before you. Now, of course, Dr. Schmidt, super smart guy, he knew this in 2017. It took me and many of the rest of us in marketing and in business several years to sort of figure out what he meant and figure out how to act on this. But I think his, you know, as we enter 2022, now 5 years later, his words ring as true, and in fact, perhaps more importantly than they did in 2017, because now we can even act on it and implement his prediction better. Alina? So we should probably start by level setting around, you know, these hot buzzwords of artificial intelligence and machine learning. You saw it in Dr. Schmidt's quote. You saw it in Alina's opening as to some of the services and expertise that Data Pilot has. You know, these terms are getting a lot of buzz and a lot of attention lately, as if they were new terms, right? Like for many of us, we're hearing and discovering artificial intelligence and machine learning for the first time. But go ahead, Alina, to the next slide. It's actually not new. This foots back to the great Alan Turing, who you might remember from the Bletchley Park Codebreakers in UK at the end of World War II. He actually wrote an article in 1950, which very famously was entitled Computing, Machinery, and Intelligence. And there I underlined it for you. Sentence 1, paragraph 1, page 1. He asked the very prescient and future-looking question is, can machines think? And that sort of was what many of us would argue as the birth, the dawning of this notion of artificial intelligence, right? Can machines do things in an artificial way, but act intelligently like humans would think? Next slide. He proposed the Turing test, and then that actually resulted in a big gathering in 1956, 5 years later, at Dartmouth University that was convened by the great John McCarthy, who we all consider in the field the father of artificial intelligence. He went on to lead the department at MIT and Stanford. And at that point, these great computer scientists in the early days agreed on a definition. And that is, what is artificial intelligence? Systems, largely computer systems, that perform actions that if those actions were done by humans, we would consider those actions to be intelligent. But they're not done by humans, they're done by something artificial, so thus the term artificial intelligence. But you know, this definition from 70 years ago still largely holds, right? Like you take a first computer science class in graduate school, this is the definition that they would still show you today. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how can you take advantage of systems that do things that we would consider intelligent if human marketers did them, but they're actually going to be done by systems. Next slide. Now, you know, you may say, well, wait a minute, I'm just hearing about this now. If this was so great and it was all being talked about in 1950, how come I haven't heard about it in the last 10, 20, 30 years? Well, look, this is Google search data from Google Trends, and you can see that there was a peak right there in the 50s and early 60s of people being very interested in this kind of data. But then, of course, it went into what we call an AI winter for many years, where it just wasn't in fashion. It wasn't what computer scientists were focused on, talking about, publishing about. And I'll tell you why in a second. But now if you're just hearing about it, you can see sort of that spike at the right end of the chart. That's where we are today, right? It's kind of regained fashion. It's regained interest of both computer scientists, business CEOs and executives, and marketers. And here's why. Next slide. It's because to get these machines to act like humans in an artificial way, but to do these intelligent things, requires three things to be true. And they were not true for the last 30 years or so. You need to have the right amount of data in order to be able to train the machines. We'll talk about that. That has to be economically viable. So you have to be able to both store that data and you have to be able to then run compute on that data. And so when there's a lack of data and it's not economically viable, we end up in an AI winter for 30 years. But of course, the good news is we all know that even with the power on your mobile phone, we're now have an explosion of data. 90% of all data in the world was generated in the last 2 years. You see the precipitous drop in cost of storage on hard drives per gigabyte, as well as a precipitous drop in compute cost. And when I was at Google, those two costs were discussed as essentially being de minimis now, right? It's sort of so negligible to store data, why not, right? But that was not the case in 1956 when John McCarthy and Alan Turing were first talking about the concept of AI. So that's why it went into a winter. That's why we're here talking today, is because we now have data that we can now perform these functions and tasks on in an economically viable way. Next slide. So I've used the terms artificial intelligence and machine learning as if they were almost interchangeable. We should probably get a little more precise on that at this point in our discussion this evening. They're not interchangeable. I want you to think about artificial intelligence as sort of the broad field of study. And it's the broad field of study whereby systems or computers act in a human-like way. But that includes subfields like robotics, for example, that are outside of our scope of discussion here this evening. But one of the subfields we want to talk about is machine learning. So it's a subset of artificial intelligence. You might think of like there's chemistry, and then a subset is biochemistry, or there's marketing, and a subset is digital marketing or search marketing. So the subset of AI we want to talk about is machine learning. What is machine learning? I like this definition. Machine learning is that branch or subfield of AI whereby machines use examples. Computer scientists call all these example data points training data, but it could be tons of images, text, numbers, sounds, so it could be structured or unstructured data. But we feed these examples, this training data, to a machine algorithm and ask the machine, the algorithm, to find a pattern in that data and then use that pattern to make a prediction about the future. And that's the sort of the forward thinking. But then based on how accurate those predictions are or aren't, we sort of score those results. And then the machine, the algorithm, the system learns the next time it makes a prediction or the next time it runs the algorithm to improve over time. So it's sort of a ever-learning, self-learning environment. And that's why we call it machine learning, because the machine learns each time through. But what's notable about this and different is the machine is able to do this without explicit if-then programming instructions. So for all of us that learned basic computer coding, COBOL, Fortran, BASIC, C++, whatever language you learn, those are all if-then languages, right? So even in basic Excel, if this column adds up to more than 10, then perform this function. If it adds up to less than 10, then perform a different function. That's not how this works, right? Here what we're doing is we're trying to say, here's some data, make a prediction based on a pattern you might find. Now, outside our scope today, but the folks at Data Pilot can take you through, there are many methods to this. There's supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement or goal-based learning, forest and tree models, lots of different techniques. You see even in gold here, a subset of machine learning is a deep learning technique. So outside our scope today, we're not here to be computer scientists. We're here to be marketers and take advantage of this. But I just want you to understand that there's lots of powerful computer science techniques behind these predictions and these algorithms. Next slide. So why am I talking about predictions today? Because if you are a marketer, I want you to think about your job. What we do is make predictions all day long, right? We are predicting what is the right product, what's the right offer, what's the right time, what's the right target, what's the right place, what's the right message, what's the right price, etc., in order to deliver the right, best personalized experience for our customers, either our current customers or our prospects. So you as a marketer are actually in the prediction business. So if this branch of computer science called machine learning makes great predictions, you kind of need to know about it and take advantage of it. And that's why we're here today. Next slide. So, I like this quote from Carl Worth at Evergage. He talks about, a good personalized experience, the best ideal personalized experience that you can provide as a brand, as a business, as a marketer, is one when you, in each individual moment on the customer path to purchase or the customer decision journey, understands the prospect, the individual, as a person, not a segment, not a group, not a all non-differentiated mass of individuals, but as a segment of one, and decides in real time what's the best experience to deliver for that individual. The right price, the right product, the right moment, the right medium, the right message, the right creative, all of those things in real time. And if you can do that, then you deliver the ideal customer personalized experience, and that delivers incremental revenue and profit, as we'll show here in a second. Next slide. So I want you to think about, as we go through this discussion this evening, okay, if I'm a marketer, I'm in the prediction business, but what is it about your business that if you could predict it much more accurately would unlock significant incremental business value? So it could be, what's the right creative in your ad campaign? Maybe you're spending a lot of money on display banner ads online, and if you're like most marketers, your click-through rate is 0.00 something. Well, if you could get much better click-through rate, if you could predict what creative would work better, that might unlock a whole lot of business value for you. On the other hand, if you're a B2B business and you're trying to figure out what businesses your sales team should call on, right? Who should be your next prospect, and your hit rate, your close rate, your win rate might be a whole lot higher if you could predict that more accurately. Well, that might be how you could unlock significantly more business value. So we're going to show you that you can use machine learning techniques in marketing for any of those kinds of use cases and others. Go ahead. So here's some. I already mentioned a few, but you could use machine learning all along the customer decision journey, both B2C and B2B, right? You could use it to uncover better consumer insights. You could use it for product development. We already talked about segmentation and targeting. You could use it for personalized advertising. You can use machine learning even to produce site personalization, right? So when I visit your website, you could make a prediction as to what that site experience, either mobile or desktop, should look like in order to deliver me that right best experience to get me to convert once I show up on your website. You can use it to predict media planning and buying. That's what is at the heart of programmatic media buying. You can use it for customer service and marketing, right? For chatbots, right? To predict what issue, challenge, or question I might have, and then predict the right best result. You can even use it in your call center, right? So that it loads up for your customer service rep what my issue might be and a projected or predicted response or resolution path for me. So that way, when I call your call center and talk to a rep, you can dispose of my issue much more quickly and with much higher satisfaction rate. Go ahead, Alina. And by the way, this is exactly what Business Data Pilot is in. Alina showed you some of this. but I boxed here, right? It's all about knowing your customers and personalizing their experience. We think very much alike on this. And if you do that, that increases ROI with campaigns that leverage data-driven personalization powered by machine learning. Can see a 5 to 8x increase in ROI for their campaign spend. So that's why I'm pleased to partner with Data Pilot on this conversation today. All the things that I'm talking about are very much sort of in the similar thinking and in the wheelhouse of what they can help you go actually activate and do. Next slide. Some examples of companies that are doing this. Here's a big global company. We all know Levi's apparel and blue jeans. This is Kalia Walsh, who is the Chief Strategy and AI Officer at Levi's. And you saw in the Wall Street Journal perhaps a week or so ago, she was interviewed and said, quote, AI has enabled us at Levi's to fully transform our business. The use of AI in marketing has given Levi's a new ability to precisely predict who our target customers should be, deliver them the right message, and therefore it has helped increase revenue. So this is not something like in theory or science fiction. Actual businesses are doing this around the world. Levi's is one example. Next slide, Alina. I'll now show you a small business that's doing this. This is a pizza shop. They have a series of pizza shops called Casey's Stores. And they are doing exactly this to predict orders. So they send a lot of emails out to get you to buy a pizza, right? But the question again is, when should we send those emails? Who should we send them to? What should the offer be? What kind of pizza should we show in the email? This is a barbecue chicken pizza, but I don't like barbecue chicken pizza. If they showed me that, that wouldn't result in a conversion. And so what they did is they used first-party data from their rewards card program, and they actually have 2.5 million members who have signed up for frequent rewards. You earn, the more pizzas you buy, the more rewards you get. So they use that as the input of the training data. And then they actually partnered with Salesforce because that was their email engine. Salesforce has a AI tool called Einstein, and they use that training data to predict the right time, the right message, the right offer, and personalize those email messages that the pizza shop sent out. And you can see here, as a result, they increased conversion rate from those emails up 16%. Now, by the way, we all know that you don't take email conversion rates to the bank, you take revenue and profit to the bank. Okay, fine. But I think we would all happily embrace and wish for a 16% higher conversion rate on our emails. So you see Levi's as a big global brand doing this. You see a little local pizza shop doing this. So I hope no matter what business you're representing, joining us here this evening, you're at least encouraged that yes, you can do this kind of thing too. Next slide. And it's not just these two. You say, oh, maybe Professor, you picked two little edge cases as kind of two outliers of examples. No, this is some McKinsey data from the end of last month, the State of AI 2020. And you can see here that in the businesses, many businesses that McKinsey surveyed, I boxed it in pink there, you can see that when firms use AI, machine learning, to power marketing and sales initiatives, the average revenue increase is in the high single digits generally, right? 7, 8, 9% increase in revenue. Of course, your mileage may vary, your situation will be different, but I want to show you that I didn't just cherry pick two businesses with the little pizza shop and Levi's as the only two businesses in the world who are driving revenue with this kinds of approach and techniques. McKinsey shows many, many businesses are doing this. Next slide. And why, right? Because again, back to our Eric Schmidt quote, the combination of using big data to train the algorithms plus machine learning techniques basically enables you to move to modern marketing, right? And that is marketing that allows you to learn and get better overnight while you're sleeping, while you're not working, right? It's self-reinforcing and it will grow in terms of complexity and outcome efficacy over time, as opposed to if you try to meet once a week, look at a spreadsheet in a conference room or over a Zoom call with your team by hand and say, okay, what emails should we send next week, right? If you're still doing that, you're going to be on that bottom vector versus the businesses, your competition perhaps, who's on that top vector, has embraced and is using big data and machine learning they're going to beat you over time. So I hope we're inspiring you in this webinar to say, I need to get started. I need to get going. I need to try this modern data-driven marketing approach because I can't keep managing this by hand. Next slide. Okay, that said, it's not too late to be early. Only about half of all marketers self-report that they're doing any kind of AI or machine learning powered marketing so far. Half are doing it, about half are not. On the left, you can see that's a result from Advertiser Perceptions, a New York-based research firm that said, yeah, about half are doing it. On the right, that's from the AI Marketing Institute, where they went out and asked marketers, like, how would you classify your competency personally, right? Like, how good are you right now at understanding all the stuff we're talking about this evening? Half of marketers classified themselves as beginners. So the good news for you is it's not too late to be early, and that's great that you're with us here in this webinar this evening. Next slide. I will say though, half of all marketers self-report that they think this is all just nonsense. They think it's hype, they think it's gonna go away, they think it's a fad. You can see this survey here shows that 47% of marketers think that artificial intelligence is the most overhyped buzzword in marketing, followed by big data and omnichannel. And there you see personalization. This is a real headline on Forbes blog, is artificial intelligence overhyped? Personalization gone by 2025. I don't think so. Our friends at Data Pilot certainly don't think so. Maybe we can all agree, Ali, to convene here back in 5 years and see who's right. But I think there's no way that this is a fad to sit on the sidelines. Many of us will remember when digital marketing was talked about as a fad, search marketing was talked about as a fad, social marketing was talked about as a fad. So I would say ignore this at your own peril and risk. Next slide. But now we should talk about, what's the barrier, right? Oh, suppose you're not in the 50% who think this is all just nonsense. You're here with us tonight, so you want to learn more about it. But you might be thinking like, well, maybe I don't have the budget for this, or maybe I don't have the talent to do this, or maybe the CIO and CTO, the technical team, should be running this and not me as a marketer. Well, okay, those are all barriers. This was a survey from eMarketer recently, but I want to call your attention to the #1 barrier. All those other things are down lower on the list, but actually the #1 barrier why marketers aren't embracing and doing these kinds of things is they don't know how to get started. They don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy, right? We have no clear path or plan on how to get started with AI and machine learning in marketing. It actually is the #1 biggest barrier. And in both my teaching and my consulting, the brands, the businesses that I work with, when I ask them, they say, oh, we could always figure out how to do this. We could always maybe find a little test budget. We could always maybe find the right talent. I just don't know how to get started. I don't have a plan. So that often is the barrier. And the good news is we'll offer a plan for you here in the remainder of our time together. Next slide. So this was our project that I alluded to at the beginning of this webinar. My co-author, Dr. Rajkumar Venkatesan, and I asked this question: can we uncover a roadmap from brands, that 50% of brands who already have started down this journey, who are already doing something? What is there to learn from those 50% of brands for the rest of us, so that we aren't sort of figuring this out blindly, aren't without any roadmap? What can we learn from them to help supercharge our journey and get us started down the path? Next slide. So our research technique here, oh yeah, by the way, many brands think, I think mistakenly, that to do anything, to get started at all, you have to like go buy a machine learning company. McDonald's has done this, right? Many retailers, Neiman Marcus has recently done this. No. Right? That's not the first thing that you should do. Don't think you have to go buy a company. Don't think you have to go hire 20 PhD data scientists. In fact, as you'll see in a minute, that's actually a wrong first step to take. That's sort of a more mature 4th or 5th level step. So rest assured, you don't have to go buy a company or hire 20 PhDs to get started with your first step. Next slide. So we interviewed lots of brands for this project. You'll recognize many of them here as big global brands. We also interviewed many sort of small little brands, some small local restaurants like the pizza shop I showed you and others. And we just basically coded the responses. We said, how did you get started? What have you done? Did it work? What do you wish you had done differently? What didn't work? Some brands wish to remain anonymous in our project here because they failed miserably, but we're happy to share the reasons behind that failure with us here. So know that what we did was interview lots of businesses around the world, B2C, B2B, big and small, lots of different categories, lots of different countries, coded the responses to say, okay, is there any commonality between the first step, the second step, the third step that you should be taking? We use this phrase, how do you go from zero to hero with machine learning in marketing, right? How do you go from zero to hero? And what did we find? Next slide. Sometimes this research works, technique, sometimes it doesn't, like you go talk to 100 companies and 100 marketers and there's no commonalities, but we were fortunate here that a remarkably consistent pattern emerged. Whether these brands were big or small, US brands, global brands, brands in Asia or in Latin America, whether they were successful or not, what we saw was a remarkable consistency of 5 sequential maturity levels or phases or steps that brands, that marketers need to take to go from zero to hero. We memorialize those, we concretize those, we put those into a model that we call the AI marketing canvas. And I'd like to show that to you now on the next slide. So this is how you get started and how you get better and better and better at this and transform to a true data-driven, machine learning, modern marketer. You start at the bottom, you read this in the bottom to the top. And I'll walk through each of these stages in further detail with one slide on each. But obviously, if this is all about having training data for the machine algorithms, you got to start with the foundation of having some data. I'll talk more about that. Then from there, you start doing some experimentation. Then from there, once you start to get a level of competency, you can expand in stage 3. Then by stage 4, you're ready to transform truly into a data-driven, machine learning powered marketer, really marketing and operating your marketing function the new way as opposed to the old way. And then stage 5 that not all brands will or should achieve is when you get so good at this, you can actually charge other companies to do this for them, and that's a monetization stage. But Alina, let's go through each of these. Let's start on the next slide with stage 1. So as I said, you need training data in order to do this. Now, depending what kind of business you run, if you're an insurance company, you probably have lots of first-party data. You know who all your policyholders are, you know their names, you know their addresses, you might know their payment credentials, you know their purchase history. You have all of that training data that you can give to folks like Data Pilot to then help start to run some predictive models. But let's suppose you have no data. Let's suppose you're a fast-moving consumer good, a CPG like Unilever. And we know the Unilever global brands. They make ice cream like Good Humor. They have face cream and moisturizers like Pond's and Vaseline. And they have some food products like Knorr, K-N-O-R-R, sold all around the world. We're going to zero in here at Thailand and Vietnam. And in Thailand and Vietnam, they had no first-party data, right? Because these kind of food products are sold through little corner bodegas and in sachet sizes, individual use sizes. So they had like 0 consumer data to train any machine learning algorithms. Well, the main social network in Thailand is Line, L-I-N-E. And the main kind of currency that users online use are these like achingly cute little emojis. You can see them on the bottom right here. And so what they did, Unilever, was they custom created, they commissioned a set of emojis for each of the brands. And they said to users, hey, if you are willing to share a little bit of your data with us, your email address, your last purchase, right? Where do you shop? What are your favorite brands? All of these kinds of things with us. In exchange, we'll give you a set of these emojis to use online. And so over time, they built up more and more and more first-party customer data in a database. And fast forward to now, in Thailand and Vietnam, Unilever now publicly claims that they have first-party data, usable training data, on over 2/3 of all households in Vietnam and in Thailand, which is like really impressive. They use that, as we'll see in the next stage, to now train some models and start doing some experimentations. At this point, you see I've got a warning. Oops, sorry, Alina. I've got a warning, if you can go back one, on the bottom here. Beyond the scope of our discussion today, we could spend a whole webinar on this, but please, please, please keep in mind, as you're collecting data, you must follow all local, regulatory, legal, social, cultural, ethical, moral standards on how you collect, save, treat, and use this data. That varies whether you're dealing with children in the US or adults in Germany, or healthcare pharmaceutical data versus financial services data. So that's beyond our scope to talk about today. Data Pilot can help you with what you can and can't do with the data, but that's an important disclaimer at this point. Now we can go to the next slide. So armed with some first-party data, now we can start doing some experimentation. So at this point, as all of your existing vendors and partners, do you have a machine learning powered option? If you're spending money with Google on search, yes, Google and Facebook can run ad campaigns that are not powered by hand, but powered by machine learning. Facebook can do the same. Instagram can do the same, right? So this is a big bank in the US, JP Morgan Chase. They were spending literally tens of millions of dollars on display ads with a 0.00 something % click-through rate. They had copywriters at an ad agency writing the headlines and the banner ads. So they said, well, let's take some of that budget, no incremental funds, and work with a company called Prosado that can train the algorithm in order to write personalized banner ad headlines so that Ali sees one thing, Alina sees another, I see a third thing based on what they know about me. And guess what? There's the headline there, that the click-through rate jumped almost 5x, 450% higher click-through rate. Now, again, you don't take click-through rate to the bank, but I think we would all take a 450% higher click-through rate on our display ads, right? And that was when the machine wrote those as opposed to humans, no incremental budget at all. But you're experimenting, right? You're working with your existing budget, your existing partners, the people you have running search versus social versus content versus maybe more traditional ad campaigns. Try the machine learning powered approach. Email is another area. Next. So now, right, you have a machine learning champion, and we'll talk more about that, who's kind of cataloging each of these experiments, right? Trying to cross-train everyone in your marketing function to learn how to do this. Now, at a certain point, you say, I want to take a bigger bet. Instead of just, peeling off 10% of my display ad budget and trying machine learning system, how can I go big? I believe that I'm getting good at this. I want to start to do something in-house. Here's an example that Coca-Cola did in Japan. And so you've probably seen these kinds of vending machines before. These are like the freestyle or smart vending machines that Coke has all around the world. And my kids love this because you can go in and you can push half the cup of grape and half the cup of cola and half the cup of orange and half the cup of blue Powerade, and they make their own concoctions. Well, in Japan, they QR smart enabled this such that if you signed up for the Coke Freestyle app, you could now save the drink concoction that you made. You can share it with your friends. You can then get notified from Coke if you like cola flavors versus fruity flavors whenever a new product or a new restaurant location pops up that offers those new flavors. And so what ended up happening now is all of the communications, advertising, and marketing messaging I'm seeing from Coke is predictive based on my actual usage history. Right? What kinds of flavors, how often, what sizes, where did I shop, where did I buy the Coke, etc. Right? So all of those individual actions that I took trained the algorithm in order to get me a personalized marketing message, right time, right message, right place, right price, right flavor, etc. Okay? Next, please. Now we start to say, okay, now I'm getting so good at this that I'm ready to discard the old manual spreadsheet way and run all my marketing this way. So now to do that, I need to either build a full in-house system to power this, or now maybe I can think about buying a company to do it. Starbucks all around the world, right, is now selling through the Starbucks app. In the US, almost 70% of all purchases run through the Starbucks app, including payment at that point. And so you can imagine, same like I showed you with Coca-Cola, here now, almost all of the advertising and marketing that you see from Starbucks is a direct result of machine learning predictions based on your past and people like you, their past history and interaction with Starbucks. They actually built this system. It's called Deep Brew, and it's built in-house on top of the Microsoft.NET environment. Maybe not a surprise, the CEO of Starbucks came from Microsoft. Let's show another example, Alina, on the next slide. This is John Deere. You know, John Deere makes big, heavy agriculture machinery. They decided actually, once they went through stage 1, 2, and 3, they decided to buy a company called the Blue River Group. And where they actually embedded machine learning was not in the advertising part of marketing, but in the product part of marketing. And so they built a system called Combine Advisor that uses a see and spray system. So now literally as these tractors are going through the field, AI vision cameras are looking at every leaf on every plant in every row in the field and predicting whether that leaf on that plant needs pesticide or fertilizer, and what kind of pesticide or what kind of fertilizer, and what amount of pesticide or what amount of fertilizer, and immediately in real time putting a micro spray application onto that leaf of that plant as the tractor is driving through the field. Okay, I mean, this is hugely transformational, right? And it's, by the way, great for farmers because they use a whole lot less fertilizer and pesticide, helps their economics. And it's good for you and me and the world, right? Because then there's just less pesticides and less fertilizers being applied and running off into our streams and drinking water, okay? So this is a very advanced kind of stage 4 application of bringing machine learning prediction into product, in this case, not advertising or marketing. Last one, Alina, on the next slide. Now, you might get so good at this that you can now resell what you've built to somebody else. So one of the great newspapers, publishers in the world is the Washington Post. They built a system called Heliograph that in real time ingests user data. That is, what is every article that I read on the New York Times, what's every click that I clicked on, what's everything that I rolled over or scrolled on, combined with what's happening in the world real time. Sports scores, stock prices, Olympic results, weather, right? And it predicts now in real time what's the right next best personalized version of the WashingtonPost.com that I see. And so I will see a different experience version personalized of the post versus Alina versus Ali. And so that tool that's called Heliograph that they built for themselves, they are now selling and licensing to other newspapers and other publishers around the world in different markets to do. So I liken this to one marketer told us that she started doing gluten-free baking for sweets and snacks and desserts because her daughter was gluten intolerant. Just out of almost desperation or frustration, she started doing it for her family, for herself. But then she got so good at this that she actually opened up a bakery to sell those baked goods to other people, right? So same idea here, right? You start down this stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 transformation to be a modern machine learning data-driven marketer, but you might get so good at it that you can monetize what you built and sell it to other non-competitive brands. Again, not every business will want to go there or be able to go there, but that's sort of the ultimate expression of, if you get good at this, what could be possible. Next slide. Okay, so we'll wind up here, and then Alina, if you want to take some questions, depending on time, we can do that. Okay, it's Monday morning here in the US. What should you do today, right now, to get started? How do we move from theory to practice? A couple of bits of advice as we wind this up. Next slide. All right, the first is all of the companies who have done this well that we interviewed appointed an internal AI marketing champion. It's sort of a 20% job, a second hat job. It's not a new hire, but someone in your marketing function, in your marketing organization who has a project management background, understands data, maybe a little bit of computer science, right? And can work cross-functionally. And their job is to start to put a learning agenda in place for the team, right? Book of the Month Club, Lunch and Learn, seminars, webinars, right? And starts to catalog experiments that each of the people in the marketing team are doing and shares those back in a spreadsheet. and starts to ask the question, well, what big data set do we already have in place that we can use to train AI models? Okay? Again, you don't need to wait 7 years for your CIO to finish some big data lake transformation project. I'll bet you, no matter who you are, you have some data right now that you can use to train a model. It's the AI champion's job to start that process. Second thing you should do right now, Alina, do an assessment, right? Have the champion start to ask the question of, okay, you've seen the AI marketing canvas. What level are you at? What stage are you at right now? What is the first next experiment that you want to run? Is it an email experiment? Is it a customer service experiment? Is it a product design experiment? Who will your partner be to do that? Data Pilot is a great option and a great partner, right? To be that partner to run those experiments moving forward. What changes would be necessary in terms of your team, your talent, your culture, your process? What barriers do you face or anticipate? Get started thinking through those questions now. Third thing you should do, get some hands-on experience. We talked about it here today. We didn't have time or ability to actually run some live demonstrations for you, but here's 3 ways you can get your hands dirty, so to speak. I love this project at Google called the Teachable Machine. You can build your own AI-powered algorithm to train it as to, you know, this kid's game called rock, paper, scissors, right? Where you kind of each throw out a hand sign and try and win. You can play rock, paper, scissors based on a machine learning predictive algorithm there, and it gets pretty good pretty fast and will beat you every time. But like, it's a simple thing. It's not marketing. It's not high powered. It doesn't require coding, but it will give you hands-on first person experience. There's some other tools out there from Intersect Labs and from RapidMiner. And again, I don't represent any of these or make any money or commission off them, but these are just simple tools where you can upload a CSV file, right? You upload a spreadsheet, you determine what's the independent versus the dependent variables. I'll remind you y equals mx1 plus mx2 plus mx3 plus b, right? So you define what are the x's, and you tell the Intersect Labs algorithm what's the y that you want to predict, right? Customers likely to stay versus customers likely to attrit and leave. That's what you want to predict. Upload your CSV file and it will make a quick and instant prediction. RapidMiner is another way to do this. Again, these are not replacements for having a great partner to do this with, but they're just simple ways to get your hands dirty, to get started, to get some experience with this. All right, Alina. And the last recommendation I would have for you all is, great that you were here with us today on this learning journey. Don't let it end here. Continue your big data plus machine learning journey. Some great books. Of course, there's Dr. Raj Ramesh's book called AI and You, about how to become fluent in AI to help further your personal career. There's our book, The AI Marketing Canvas. There are online learning tools from Microsoft, from Google, from Coursera, and the second one there on the left is from the AI Marketing Institute, these little sort of sets of online video courses that you can take anywhere in the world. 3 of those are free. The Coursera course, I think, is $59 US, so not a whole lot of money to get started on this. And also work with your partners. Just ask them to kind of tell you about this, teach you, train you. I know the folks at Data Pilot would be happy to go further on any of these topics. And so with that, Alina, I think my last slide is a thank you. Thanks for being with us. Good luck as we enter calendar year 2022. Happy New Year, as hopefully this will be the year when you can capture some power and benefit of big data and AI and machine learning in marketing. And so I thank you, Ali. I thank you, Alina, for inviting me here today. That concludes my prepared remarks. Alina, if there's time for questions, I'm happy to do that. I know we're sort of running back against your back end of time, but yeah, that's what I had.
So for sure, we do have some time and we have some questions in line that we had on the chat. So firstly, like there was a question that, are there any don'ts to keep in mind while implementing AI in data-driven marketing decisions?
Well, okay, so the first don't, and I alluded to this, is don't run before you walk or crawl, right? Like, don't think that immediately I can buy a company, hire 20 data scientists, transform my whole company by Monday, and I'll be amazing and world class at this, and I'll be the headline story on Wall Street Journal next week. It doesn't work that way, right? Like the companies that failed hard often made some big investments there, but unless you have a foundation in place and unless you start to do some experimentation, you're not going to do that. I mean, think about this, right? If I don't know, I wanted to go ice skating or rollerblading or roller skating, and okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, or maybe downhill skiing, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the biggest, steepest hill in the world. No, I'll probably break my leg, right? So you want to like get some training, work with some good partners, get going on that. So that's one don't. And the other don't is don't run afoul of local legal regulations on use of data, right? I alluded to that one, but you need to be very careful how you use your customers' data, whether it's GDPR or California data privacy. Oh, by the way, we're going into next week, start of 2022, and lots of municipalities and governments have even more new data laws taking effect on January 1st. So those would be my big don'ts.
Okay, perfect. There's also another question that how much data is required to drive such results?
Well, Ali, I'll let you chime in on this in your experience, but I would say if you had a few thousand rows of data, you can start to make some effective predictions, just sort of broadly or generally speaking. But what is your recommendation from a computer science point of view?
Connection at least a bit weak right now, so we'll just move on to the next question.
Yeah, we're not quite hearing you well on that.
Yeah. So the next question was that real world data is often at risk of bias and missing data. So do you have any recommendations on how data scientists should best collaborate with physicians and clinical scientists?
Well, I'll start on the missing data. Depends what kind of data is missing. You can actually use predictive machine learning to actually fill in some possible data. So let's suppose we're in the UK and there's a postal code that's missing on an address. Okay, well, that might be a field that I don't have in a customer record. I could actually pretty safely predict, if you're in London, what part of London the postal code might be or the zip code is in the US, if I know some other things about you, right? If I maybe know an IP address that you've dialed in from, if I know a street that you're on, etc. So those, I think, are some relatively safe things that we can use to fill in some data gaps. So, you know, there's some safer things like that. In terms of bias, now we could again probably have a whole conversation about bias, and I would just remind folks that there's bias in a positive sense and there's bias that can be very negative. The positive bias would be, here's a group of customers who look like good customers and they've bought from us with a high recency, frequency, and monetary value. My bias would be, let's go find more of those customers who look like that and act like that. That's bias, right? I train a model to then lean towards what looks like good customers. Arguably nothing wrong with that, but that is bias in the model. Obviously, then there's a different kind of bias, which is excluding people, not valuing types of people based on where they live, what they look like, who they are, what they act like, and that's a bias that we want to do our best to avoid. So, you know, my advice there is to work with a good partner like the folks at Data Pilot, ask these kinds of questions. Who was in the training data? Did we have a broadly representative set of data in the training data, or was it narrowly? Who were the machine scientists that were working on this? What background do they have, right? Do they bring a broad worldview or a narrow worldview? So those are all the right questions, by the way, that you as a marketer trying to apply machine learning, you need to ask these questions and don't just assume that, oh, because a computer scientist worked on this, it must be fine.
Perfect. Okay, so now there were like a couple of questions around this sentiment, so I'm going to just jumble them up into one. Is that a lot of people are very fearful of AI. They're insecure that in the future that's going to cause them to lose their jobs. And then there are also like people, as you said, who just consider this technology and these terms a buzz, right? And then there are like companies and who are just so scared of AI in general because they're used to working a certain way and now they feel like they'll have to start from scratch. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I would say it's a natural human emotional reaction that we are easily able to see the downside of a new technology sooner, clearer, faster than you can see the upside of it. So, oh my gosh, imagine if Uber takes over the world, then all these cab drivers will be out of a job, right? Like that's your immediate first reaction. On the other hand, my elderly neighbor is able to get food delivered during a pandemic because Uber exists, and otherwise she would not be able to go to the market and shop herself, right? When I first heard about Uber, I never imagined those positive upsides. So I would just, encourage listeners to think about, yes, there might be some challenges, but there will also be some unimaginable upsides from this that we have yet to think about or figure out. In terms of your own job or your own personal role, I mean, that's why I encouraged and recommended that book, AI and You. If you're going to work for 5 years, 10 years, 15 more years, you need to embrace this and figure it out, right? I mean, we said, oh, well, I guess I could have been working with an old hand calculator and a pencil, but we all learned how to use a computer, right? And then we all learned how to use a mobile phone, and we all learned how to use a spreadsheet, right? Being a marketer, being a business person requires a constant learning journey. And I would also say, by the way, it unlocks your full potential and your staff's full potential to do higher value, strategic kinds of thinking, as opposed to just sort of performing kind of processing rote tasks that, frankly, computers do much better than we do. They don't get tired, they don't make mistakes, they're not cranky on Monday morning, right? So use the computer for what it can do well, and then it unlocks you to do some other things.
Last question, and it's really about firstly that how much AI and machine learning should marketeers really know, and secondly, soon right now AI and machine learning seem like a competitive advantage, and but soon in the coming years it will become a standard, right? So what's your advice for those who want to improve their data and AI literacy?
Get started, right? I talked about this. It's not too late to be early. Another proverb, right? Journey of 1,000 miles starts with a first small step. Make 2022 the year when you get started. Try something, do some experimentations. Because I agree with that sentiment that, sooner than we think, this is going to be how marketers operate as a standard. And if you wait, if you sit on the sidelines, if you're skeptical, if you don't engage, if you're not curious, and if you don't learn, your business and yourself, you risk getting left behind. So make 2022 the year to do that. Find a good partner like Data Pilot, read a good book like mine, and get started.
Perfect. So thank you so much for this knowledge that you imparted during this webinar. Really, really thankful. And honestly, with Data Pilot, we've been doing this cutting edge work here, and at least I have been always so inspired with everything that you've taught. And everybody who listens to you is just almost so inspired that, with the experimentation that you said, it's like we just want to start tomorrow. So that's great. And to all our listeners and participants, if there's anything, if you feel inspired, if you have a question right away, just hit us up anytime. Data Pilot can actually help you along the way a lot. Jim, one last question. The participants are actually loving this, and we already have a lot of emails. They're asking if this presentation is available for them to view later.
I think we can make that happen. Alina, let's work separately to do that. And meantime, they're free to connect with me on LinkedIn too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye all.